Hallo miteinander, I'm Gish86 and this is Touhou Koukishin. Last time we defended against a legendary phoenix. It turns out there's another bird causing us grief. The Tengu reporter Ayasha Memaru. She just couldn't help but write her worthless tabloid in the most accusing tone towards the Scarlet Devil Mansion as possible. We're going to seek her out and bring forth our complaints. Complaints that may be expressed by repeated stabbings. The location we have to visit for this is the marvelous waterfall of the Nine Heavens. It is regarded as the territory of the mighty Tengu race, also known as the Dogs of the Heavens. Over here is a little secret of sorts, two vases concealed behind the rock. Didn't really net us anything though. Now, I could talk a little bit more about the area around this mystical waterfall, but there is really no point. Why? Because we are already done with it, yes. It seems Aya has retreated from this quaint little shack to way up the waterfall. And to that, Sakuya just says, screw it, I'm not going after her right now, it's way too much of a hassle. Got to say, I'm a little bit disappointed in our supposedly heroic maid. What's with the sudden lack of determination? I guess a stitch in time saves none in this case. We just got teleported back to the library. It is a good thing that we still have a few other sources to explore. For once, all the way back in episode 2, Wriggle pointed us to our dear friend Patchouli, after we gave her some extra motivation. Moreover, in episode 3, we snagged a key from Star Sapphire, so we can show her that one, see what it does. You know how it often is in storytelling. For a long time, no significant progress may be made, but then, even if only by coincidence, the puzzle pieces will start connecting. We're going to trust Sakuya's intuition on this one and go down into the old dusty library archives. You could say we are delving down into a dungeon, if you wanted to hurt Patchouli's feelings. I do find it funny how paranoid our librarian is about the books down there. It's so typical, isn't it? Of course we won't destroy anything down there. Except everything, probably. We are going to run into a lot of fights here. Yeah, the game doesn't really make it a mystery that this place will be dangerous. Sakuya is mentioning a someone meant to guard the area here. I believe that would be Koakuma. She may be a most minor character, but she is in fact in the game. Not in a way that you would think she is, though. But enough about that now. Let us swiftly go and find Remilia. Alrighty, stage 5. It is a bit of a tricky subject for me, so I'm going to hold off on my opinion of it for now and really just start by giving you some general information about it. It consists of 4 sections in total, and each of them is already pretty large on its own. It'll be one heck of a contrast compared to the previous episode. That one went by like a breeze, didn't it? Granted, one of the 4 sections is completely optional. Of course we will go through it, for the usual reasons. Loot, experience, and many butts that we can kick. The special thing about these sections is that they all share the same basic layout. The inner part of each map will be somewhat of a grid, with corridors connecting small chambers with one another, with 13 chambers in total. 9 of these are arranged 3 by 3 inside the grid, while the remaining 4 are stretching outside, one on each side. We are entering one of those side chambers right now, the western one. Many valuable treasures are waiting for us in there, so it is only natural that we sought it out, even if we didn't even need to go there really. Now, one of the items we got from it was a mysterious picture. That is a very unusual item. The best way that I can think of describing it would be a reserve for hard times. It is an accessory and can be equipped, but it has 0 stats on it. What you really want to do with it is simply sell it. These otherwise pointless trinkets go for a good price. That is, once we actually get the means to sell items. Some of those items go for less, others far more. Mysterious pictures have a value of 5,000 each, I believe. It's hard to imagine why you would need money in item form, but there's a reason for this. We'll talk about that some other time. Anyway, I've got more to say on the stage layout. The isolated side chambers are the most interesting rooms in the archives. On average, there are exceptions. But because they are, we will always be shooting for them. The other chambers, not necessarily. We might ignore some of them. I've got to say it again, this is a pretty massive stage. If we searched everything, we would grow an epic beard. Especially the corridors have very little going for them. Often just single enemies waiting to ambush you. So, tell you what, I've got a route memorized, the most efficient one I could map out, so we will stick to that one. It may not be part of a side chamber, but this unassuming treasure chest presents us with a Moonlight Pearl. That is excellent. Truly one of the best finds you can get from the archives. Look at our drop rate now, 205%. Yeah, Moonlight Pearls will beef up your luck tremendously. They also possess decent combat stats on top of that. Of course, they are very rare. More commonly found around here are their weaker versions, the Amulets of Fortune. They may pale in comparison, but if you have nothing of the sort, you still want to use them. They're not bad. Now we're about to leave the first section. Up here, where there's a brown marking on the minimap, is a set of stairs leading downwards. Down where there's more dungeon, books, and annoying fairies. So many fairies. Against them, we are using a new set of skills. Part of it you should already know, Knife Dispenser, but Propelling Silver is brand new. It might remind you strongly of Close-Up Magic, that's because it's pretty much an updated version of that one. More power, better range, unfortunately a higher cast time, and also way more expensive. 4 skill points on each use, that's a lot. Perhaps more than is reasonable to expend at our current level of equipment, but you know, no risk, no fun. If you use it cleverly, you can get rid of a lot of enemies at the same time, like so. Now Knife Dispenser on the other hand is not a move that will immediately strike you as being very impressive. It does have a far spread, anyone who has played Contra knows that is a good thing, but it lacks in power. What makes it work as well as it does is how spammable it is, and how much of a no-brainer it is to use. In the wide chambers of this stage, you just let it loose a few times, and the knives will have killed something, perhaps even everything. While both of these skills may not count among my absolute favorites, they do deserve some screen time. After all, they are pretty well suited for this stage, and also complement one another pretty well. Now the optional part of the stage I mentioned is right here, westmost in the second section. Down this staircase you will find rewards aplenty. You do have to prepare yourself though. It also houses the most dangerous encounters of the stage, I find. The majority of enemies down here will still be fairies, but some can be of higher quality. Not everything that looks like a simple fairy can just be steamrolled. You will need a keen eye to tell the different types apart. Now I am not talking about the bigger flower-carrying fairies. Those you will recognize immediately. Instead, I mean the small ones. Some of them seem to have taken an obsessive liking to Final Fantasy VII and are carrying ridiculously oversized broadswords. I know we don't have any of them on screen right now, but it'll only be a minute until we do. Anyway, somehow those fairies have learned to swing their swords effectively. If you rush recklessly towards those sword fairies, they are pretty likely to hit you first. The better idea is to either kill them from a distance, or if you simply can't help it, bait them first and then counter after they've swung. You'll likely have also noticed that some of the fairies carry lances. Well, those aren't even fairies, they are Alice Margatroyd's Lancer dolls. Like the sword fairies, they are pretty easy to mistake for unarmed ones. The same tactics that work for the sword fairies can also be applied to them. So yeah, you always have to be wary of these uncommon types. But if you play the game for a long enough time, it'll become all natural. I got a little bit clumsy in this room, didn't I? Part of the problem was running out of skill points. I tried hitting the button to use propelling silver, but for a long time I just couldn't afford it. I guess the high cost really did work against us in the end, but we are past that now. Coming up in the northern part of this section are the especially tricky rooms. This one is special as it has a red flower fairy roaming about in it. They count among the toughest foes in the entire game, durable and gifted with very mean attacks. When you see one and have a spell ready, never think twice about using it. One room further and we are not getting a break. Fairies with a blue aura around them are super fairies, slightly weaker than red flower fairies but still a force to be reckoned. They are double teaming us too, but not for much longer. It's rare that you fight more than one of them at a time. Well, we've just found a second Chinquidia, what a surprise. It might be better than the one we are using, or it might not be. I will compare them at a later time, but right now it's really not all too urgent. No urgent emergency. On that note, I was kind of baffled by the items we got in this run. I am grateful for the Moonlight Pearl and the Chinquidia, alright, but at this point I usually would have gotten at least one health prayer amulet. Very typical for the archives. It increases your health by a flat percentage, usually 15 to 20. It sounds cool, but it has a downside to it. You forfeit all the item drop rate that other accessories tend to have. I think it's really only meant for bosses, but for those it can indeed be very helpful. So we may not have one of those right now, but we really can't complain. I would not exchange a Moonlight Pearl for a Health Prayer Amulet. No sir. In the long run, the Pearl will be far more essential to us. That is for sure. After spell carding this room, there's pretty much nothing else important to clear out in the optional section. The only thing left to do is to head back to the entrance of it on the most direct way possible and really get back to where we are supposed to be going. Remilia must already be waiting for us, unless of course she's extremely dead, already gathering mold. It's a possibility, remember? By the way, most people will already know this, it was also evident from the title screen, but Remilia is the other playable character besides Sakuya. Or let me rephrase that, Sakuya is the other playable character besides Remilia. When the first news of this game appeared, it looked like it would only be an action game starring Remilia. It stayed like this for a while, but Sakuya became confirmed in the third promotional video, titled Sakuya Joins the Battle. Oh, the joy that brought to me. Really made it a must-get for me. Don't get me wrong, nothing against the bratty little bloodsucker, but picking her over the enigmatic time-stopping maid? Not a chance. Sakuya was in fact for a very long time my favorite character in all of Touhou. That is until a certain goddess of misfortune came spinning along. Still, with her having that silver medal, no way would I not use her in the Let's Play. Unthinkable. It also didn't matter to me which one of the two would be over or underpowered. It was really set in stone from the very start. Besides, the vast majority of videos on YouTube had picked Remilia. Such imbalance. Got to go against the flow and be a rebel. I have of course also played through Remilia's story mode, so in case you're wondering, in her timeline so to say, Sakuya is the one who mysteriously vanishes. Now the northernmost chamber of the second section seems pretty inviting, doesn't it? So much stuff for us. For example, the twist knife can be pretty worthwhile. It is way better than the assault daggers we keep finding. In comparison, those are garbage, and will be sold without being even looked at. A twist knife's stats tend to be centered a little bit more around pure combat than a Chinquidia's, so we may use one at some point. Okay, where to now? The next set of stairs is in the easternmost chamber of this section, so it'll be a little bit further until we get there. A few more fights separate us. Over those, we'll hopefully be able to gather up a halfway decent hit counter. We haven't had much luck with that this video. It is lost so easily, so quickly, kind of like that. I've already told you about one way to lose your combo. That would be running out of time until landing the next strike. You will also lose your combo if you get hit without being able to retaliate immediately. Keyword being retaliate. In most action games that display a hit counter, if you make a mistake and get caught by an enemy attack, you will always lose that chain. It's understandable. An example for a Touhou fan game that does it like this would be the Katsugeki Kidan series. That one's relentless in that regard. Kengeki Muso and Touhou Koukishin, however, give you the chance to save your combo if you can just land another hit right after being hit yourself. It's very lenient like that. I like it. Of course, there are times when taking an enemy attack will just throw you so far back that you have no chance. You will lose that chain. But those are very few in number. In most cases, it's perfectly possible. Okay, we have arrived at the final section of the stage. We have a good number of precarious encounters ahead of us. They should, however, help us in reaching level 21, a sensible goal to have. If we rummaged around for much longer, we could maybe make it to level 22, but I think that would be trying too hard. I also don't want to stay too much longer in the archives because of reasons. I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. No matter the hurry, there is one chamber that you should always visit. It's the one to the west of here. That one usually has something nice in it. Usually. In all of my test runs, I found an amulet of fortune under one of the vases. We don't need one right now, but I find it reassuring to know that it is so likely to happen here. Doesn't seem to be generous at all right now. Anything? Nope, that was a bust. I guess it's not 100% chance after all. Now, once more about those reasons I've mentioned. I've got to admit that I've got somewhat of a beef with this stage. I can't like it. I simply don't. I didn't want to be so straightforward with that. I didn't want an air of pessimism to linger over the whole video, but at some point you've got to be honest. You've got to say what you think. Now, don't get me wrong, it is not so insultingly terrible a stage or unfair or anything that it hurts the game as a whole. I wouldn't compare it to, say, a rhinoceros's diarrhea freckled with croutons. That's a thing some Let's Players like to do. But yeah, if you told me to nominate a clear low point for Touhou Koukishin, it would be this stage, no question. I don't think everything is bad about it. For example, I find it interesting that the library makes sense in layout. You could construct a real one with this floor plan in mind, and it would be orderly and convenient, I would say. It's not a very strong argument, I know. The design as a whole is just too unremarkable. But you know what? I do like the music, even if more in itself. It is a very gentle rendition of Septet for a Dead Princess, with piano bits in it. I am such a sucker for pianos. I even played a little myself in my teenage years. I simply can't shake the feeling though that it feels a little bit out of place here. The track was already used during the intro artwork and when the mansion laid in ruins. You have to admit, it's starting to feel recycled. The theme itself worked for the game previously, but here, I just don't know. I think I would have liked something darker, because it's after all a pretty combat-centric stage. Maybe something closer to stage 4 of the embodiment of Scarlet Devil, or even Pachuli's own theme. I actually have a bold theory about this. This might have been a placeholder track. Whatever they were going for didn't work out for some reason. Might be. I think I should stop with my little rant here. I do apologize if I seem too cranky and overly critical to you today. I think I know how to lift your spirits again. I may have made it very clear that this is my least favorite stage in the game, but what that also means is that everything that will come beyond it is much better. Sometimes even great. I think we've gone through everything that was worth it at least. The way to proceed is a little further up north, just like it was in the first section. The structures on the minimap do look a bit suspicious now, don't they? What were we looking for again? Ah, that's right, Remilia. And indeed, here she is. And she's not even extremely dead. Perhaps a little bit shabby, she was after all locked in a cellar for 1.5 days. But yeah, the mistress is safe and sound. I bet Sakuya could dance with joy now, but not in front of the lady. It would not be a sightly thing to do for a dignified maid. The most sensible thing to do would be filling her in. You may remember that we were just meant to locate the monster for busy Remilia, but things seem to have changed again now. Remilia finally gives us the authority to handle the whole thing ourselves, as she is even busier now, I guess. She really doesn't know what she wants, does she? I do love this upcoming line though. If we fail, we'll know her wrath. That impossible little brat. Threatening her savior of all things. Well, we weren't really planning on failing our quest, so here's to hoping we never get to find out how she would punish us. Isn't it great though? We no longer play the second fiddle. Yes, we are so important now. But while we're here, Remilia gives us a fetch quest on the way. We are supposed to pick up a delivery from the half-demon shopkeeper Rinosuke. I guess in the end, Sakuya will never ever truly escape being an errand girl. It is so disappointing. But with this, the Scarlet Devil Mansion should be back under control. Let's report to Patchouli once more. While we're giving her a revision of the happenings, I just want to say that I'm really digging the smooth theme of the upper library. Especially the beginning part is so sleazy, it's got a certain bow chicka wow wow-ness to it. The only thing that would make it even better was if the ghost of Isaac Hayes came to Gensokyo and accompanied it. Oh yeah, damn right. That aside, it looks like we will pick back up where we were at the start of the episode. Right after we've taken care of Remilia's delivery, of course. Maybe we can finally get a hold on that slippery Tengu paparazzi. Okay, we're at that point again. One last thing, another reason why this stage feels so stale for me is that it doesn't have a boss fight. Yeah, I'm finally allowed to spoil that. I'm Gesh86, this was the perhaps grumpiest episode of Touhou Koukishin yet, and next time, do go chasing waterfalls. Also, we'll be looking at antiques. Sounds boring? You'll be surprised. Bis bald!